Okay, for our hat, you're going to need 5 different colors. We're going to do one color would be for your rim. You could choose which color you're going to use for the brim. And then we're going to rotate the colors. So here I'm using 5 colors. I'm kind of trying to make kind of like a ombre, but not really ombre, but just kind of in the same family. This will be my first row, second, third, fourth, and fifth. The brim I'm probably going to do in this color. It doesn't matter. If you like to do it in the darker one, it'll keep it cleaner around your forehead. So you're going to need just small quantities of each different color. I'm using a size J hook, which is a number 6. It's 6 millimeters. You're going to need a yarn needle to sew in your tails, some scissors to clip your tails at the end, and then some kind of measuring tape to measure the length of your piece and to measure around the circumference of your head. This size I'm making is a woman's size. It should fit teenagers and most women. It will stretch a little bit, so it can fit most women's heads and teenagers, older children as well. And so here, these are the supplies we're going to need. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, everyone, for our hat, these are the supplies we're going to need. I'm going to be using a J size hook, which is a 6.0 millimeter hook. You're going to need something to cut your yarn. You're going to need a yarn needle to sew in your tails. Tape measure, such as this, and you can measure the length of your hat and also the circumference of your head. I'm going to be using these colors, but I'm going to use the white twice. So I'm going to you would need to do 5 different colors. Here I'm going to be using this color, the white, then this one, and then I'm going to put the white again, and then finally my lightest color. So I could kind of do a little bit of kind of the same family. These are 2 different colors, but when you put them right next to together, you don't see the difference too much. And so this is why I'm going to stack it up differently. You might want to go ahead and roll up your yarn or keep it in a direction where it's easier, so you don't get a lot of tangles. You could also put them in spools. It's up to you. So here to begin, I'm going to start with my J size hook, which is a 6.0 millimeter, and I'm going to do the brim of the hat. Now, if you want your brim to be wider, you can measure on yourself, on your forehead. This is the part that's going to cover the forehead. So if you want it bigger, then you would need to add more chains. If you want it more narrow, then you can add less chains. I'm going to begin with 5 chains. So I'm just going to make my slip loop and pull my yarn out. I leave the tail a little bit longer because it's easier to sew in. I hate when you have to sew in your tails and they're too short and you really can't grab it. So here to begin, then I'm going to start with 5 chains. If you want it wider, start with more. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is really the width of the brim. If you wanted more, you could add, 9, 8, 6, 8, 9, whatever you want. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. The last one is for our turning. Now here I'm going to go ahead and begin my first row. Here I'm going to do 1 single crochet in every stitch. The single crochet, remember, is without yarning over. So you would just get your hook, put it into the next chain, and pull out. Now we're going to make rows, add rows to this until it's long enough to fit around the circumference of your head. You can stretch it out a little bit, but not so much that you lose the ribbing effect. We're going to do a little ribbing effect on here to help the hat fit better. So here I'm going to begin my rows, and I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to turn my work over. I'm going to be working back and forth, and here, beginning on here in every row, I'm just going to go into the back part of the chain. You can see here that there's a front loop and a back loop. I'm only going to be working in the back loop. You can work in the front loop, but I don't think it gives as much as a ribbing effect as going into the back loop. That's just my personal opinion. So here I'm going to have 4 stitches, single crochets in the back loop only. I'm going to continue this way until I have 65 rows. So here's 1, 2, I'm going to chain 1, and then here, go again. And I'm going to continue this until I have my 65 rows, and that's going to fit right around my head. This is will fit an adult female woman, some teenagers, and I imagine even some kids. Now you can see how it's starting to make the rib effect. I'm going to continue that until I have my 65 rows. Let me make sure. Okay, so now here you can already see that the ribbing is taking effect. So I'm just going to continue that way, chain one, turn my work over, work one stitch in every single crochet in the back loop only. I'm going to continue this until I have 65 rows. Okay. Okay, so here the way I'm going to join this is I'm going to do it with a slip stitch. All my stitches are done here, and if you want an easy way to count them here, you could see that every little ridge here, it has actually 2 rows, 1, 2. So the way I just counted it, if you do it this way, there's 1, 2. So I like to flip it over here with the tail to the bottom. So it's going to be every one of these little rows is going to be 2 ridges, is going to be containing 2 rows. So here's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, or you could just count them all the way across. When I got here, I had 30, so I knew that that was 60 rows. Then I made 1, 2, 62, 1, 2, 64, and 65. Here's where you would end with your 65. Now to join these, we're going to slip stitch across. Now I like to, when you finish, if you just do it this way, your yarn will be behind and it's really hard. I like to do it this way. Just join it. These are ribs, so there's not really a front or back. I want to have this closer to me where I'm working because you're going to work, I'm right-handed, so I go from right to left. So here what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and slip stitch to join these. I'm going to go into this first layer, which has the full chain, front and back loop. When I come back here, I want to be able to get it into all my chains. This is 1, 2, 3. You could barely see. Okay, when you finish joining all your stitches here, it should be this way round. It's not going to, make sure it's not twisted. That's really important. If your hat is twisted like this, it's not going to work. Just pull it out and make sure it's all lined. Now what we want to do here is that we want to work 1 single crochet in each one of these little rows. At the end of here, you should have 65 single crochets. To go up here to this space, I'm going to chain 1. I'm not going to worry about that. And then here, if I open this up, this is my first row here. So I'm going to go right here and do 1 single crochet, and you're just trying to work it in there. 1, okay. And then here's the first row. Here is kind of, you don't see it too much, but that's the second row right here. 2. Then my next row is here. 3. And if you want, you can go through the post if it's easier for you. And then here, 4. And you're just going to go 5 into that post there. And you continue working that in every single ridge. So here's where I have my marker that this was the 60th stitch. So here's my 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to continue working that in every single little ridge. I don't really like going through here because it makes kind of a little hole. So sometimes I'll go through the post and kind of grab it just to kind of hide that hole. So now here is my next stitch. I'm going to go through the edge here. So you can work into this post if it helps you to keep the holes from getting kind of big. So here's my next one. So I'm going to continue until I've gone all the way around, and you should have 65 single crochets all the way around. When I come here to the end, I'm going to go ahead and do my last stitch here on this side of the post, slip stitch, chain 1, and then continue doing 1 single crochet all the way around for 65 stitches, finishing off here at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that off, and I'll come back and I'll show you how you close that off. You're going to have 2 rows of single crochet. Okay, take 2. So here I finished joining my 2 edges, and now it's a circle. This should fit around the head, and it does stretch a little bit. This will fit, you know, if it's me and it's like a woman's size. So now to go up here, we're going to do 2 rows of single crochet in every stitch. So here I'm going to go chain 1. And now if you open this, we want to do a stitch in every one of these rows. So here is the first row, here's the second, here's the third, fourth, fifth, and so on. This was every row that you did the 4 single crochets, and then you turn. Here's the next one. So here, if it's easier, you could kind of open it. Here's the first little ridge. So I'm going to do 1 single crochet in there. Let me pull my yarn there. And then here's the next little ridge. Because see, if you look at it here, you can see there's 1 here, 1 stitch here, 1 row here. So here's 1, and I'm going to go to the next one, 2. Now this is the next little ridge there. You could see it there, right there. So I'm going to go 3, and then the next one is 4. So one of them you're kind of working into the post. So you can see here the next one I'm going to work kind of into that post, and then the next one is kind of like in that little space there. Okay, I finished doing my whole row on top. So here I have 65 stitches. If you are like maybe short one, because here I did 65, but this looks like a ridge, but that's actually where I had joined the pieces together, so it's a little confusing. But here you should have 65 stitches. As long as you have that, you can kind of fudge it a little bit, but you need to have 65 single crochets. I have put a stitch marker there so I don't get confused with that little chain, which does not count as a stitch. So then here, I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch to close that. I'm going to chain 1, and then in the same stitch, I want to keep the same stitch count, so I need to add my first single crochet here. I'm going to do another row of only single crochets right there. Oops, excuse me, I almost missed a very important part. So here I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet in every stitch, but only in the back loop. So here's 1, 2, and this is going to allow me to have these little front loops free for when I do the Apache tears. I need to be able to catch on there. So now you're just going to do 1 row of single crochet in the same color as the brim. So you're going to have 2 rows of single crochet. The first one is going to go through the loops, the rows here, and then the second one here, you're working only in the back loop of the chain. It helps you, you can kind of tilt your work a little bit this way, and then you can see that chain, that back loop chain very easily. So you're going to do this all the way around. When we come back, then I'll show you how we begin our first Apache teardrop. So go ahead and you have 2 rows of single crochet with the same color as the brim. Okay, I finished all my stitches, all my 65 stitches, and if you do it all one solid color, you're really not going to get the full effect of the stitch. So it's better that you choose several, like for here the repeat, I'm doing this 5 different colors. So once I get here, I'm going to be changing my color to white. It's probably easier if you have your yarn kind of lined up. You could even use the little spools to keep it from getting really tangled. I'm not going to be cutting the yarn. I'm going to let the yarn, I'm going to be bringing up the yarn here at the opening up, and then that way I don't have to do as many sewing in the tails. If you want to sew in the tails, you can, but that's kind of a lot of, really, I think it's kind of unnecessary work. So here, I've done my 65 stitches in the back loop only. I'm going to get a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing here. So I've only worked in the back loop, and you can see these little stitches here are now kind of free right there, right? And so here, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch into my first stitch, and without cutting the yarn, I'm going to drop that yarn. I'm going to grab the white yarn, which is my next color. I'm going to leave a tail because I want to make sure that I can fasten that off in the end. I'm going to bring out my color, and then here, since it's the first time I'm doing it, I am going to make just a little knot to hold it so I don't lose my place. But I still have that tail there because I'm going to, at the end, I'm going to sew in these tails and then the last ones that I have in the beginning. So here, okay, so I did my first chain to go up, and now here I'm going to go ahead and do a single crochet, the same stitch in the back loop only, just like that. Okay, now here I'm going to begin my first teardrop. It's going to be a double crochet, but here's the stitch that I would never normally go there, but I'm going to go to the stitch below. And so this is why we need those little stitches there in the back. We worked only in the back loop. So I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to go into my next stitch, which is here, down here, the row below. I'm going to grab my yarn, pull it up, and now it's important that you make sure you pull up high enough so you're level with the rest of your stitch. You don't want to be down here because it's going to be too low and you won't be able to see it. So you're going to kind of pull enough yarn so you're in the same level here. You're going to pull through your first two, then your next two. Okay, so now we want to make sure. Now I see that my teardrop is even with the other stitch. Now I'm going to keep working on my next stitch here. And I'm going to do a single crochet in the back loop only of the next four. So there's 1, 2, there you go, 3, and 4. And you can see that I'm still working only in the back loop. I'm leaving these little posts free. Now here, once again, every 5th stitch is going to be our teardrop. So here on the 5th one, I'm going to go down to the row below it and do my double crochet. So here's the next stitch. So I'm going to go in here, grab that yarn through there, pull up my stitch, lift it up high enough that it's in the same level, go through the first two, the second two, and there is my next stitch. Just like that, you're grabbing them in that front. Now I'm going to continue doing this all the way around. You're going to do a teardrop followed by 4 single crochets. 1. So you're just going to be continuing your pattern all the way around, remembering that we're working one row below the current row, and we're going to be going into the little stitches here. So here now I've done my last teardrop for this row, and so here I said 1, 2, and then here it's going to be 3, and then if I look here, that would be my 4th stitch, and then the 5th again. So here I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into that first stitch. Now here I'm going to change colors and I'm going to go to my next color. You're going to choose whichever color you want. I'm going to be using this color next. So let me get my yarn here, and then I'm going to pull my yarn through, and then here where I start, I don't want my tail to get kind of loose or my yarn to be loose, so I'm going to just kind of make a little knot on the white. I should have worked that tail in there. I didn't work the white tail. Let me show you what I mean by that. I'm sorry about that. I apologize. Hopefully you've looked a little bit ahead. So now we're going to be working with this next yarn, and so the tail here, I'm sorry, I should have worked that white tail in. So here I'm going to try to work my tail in as I go along and hiding it. If you want to sew it in, you can do that as well. So here's my next color. There it is. So I'm going to chain 1, and then in the front loop, in the back loop only, once again, I'm going to do my first single crochet. I'm going to kind of leave that tail there so I could work in the work as I work along. I should have done that in the first row. So here I'm going to do single crochets, and the stitch after the teardrop, I'm going to go ahead and do my next teardrop. So here I'm going to go single crochet, back loops only, and then now once again here on my next stitch I'm going to do the teardrop, the double crochet. So we want to work not in the same row, but in the row below, and this is where we're going to be catching these little loops here. So I'm going to just yarn over, go into that little loop below the row I'm working in, grab my yarn. The important thing is, remember, make sure you lift it up enough yarn loose there. Finish your double crochet 1 and 2, and then the teardrops then are aligning right next to the left of your work. Let me get some more yarn here, and then you continue doing your pattern. So once again, once your teardrop is done, remember you're going to do 4 single crochets, then your teardrop. So once again, skipping that stitch that we just worked there, you're going to do a single crochet, 1, 2, 3. Now this time my 4th stitch is going to be over this teardrop, and then I do my teardrop. Oops, that little tail is driving me crazy. 4, and then the teardrop will go on the next stitch to the left of the previous teardrop. Yarn over, go into that loop, grab your yarn, pull it through, make sure you lift it high enough, and finish your double crochet. You're going to repeat that all the way around, and when you get here to the last stitch, we're going to slip stitch into that first stitch. We're going to change color to the next yarn, pull it up. I'm not cutting my yarn, I'm just going to be pulling it up through the back here as I work. If you want to cut it and sew your tails in after every row, you can do that, but I find it's easier just to kind of carry it up to the top. We're going